Shifting gears now, the South African Transport Conference's 2025 edition has kicked off today. This year is focused on mobility solutions to Southern African challenges, unpacking the economic and developmental costs of poor transport infrastructure. And joining us for greater insight is Dr. Mathetha Mokonyama, Chairman of the South African Transport Conference. Thank you so much for your time. Now, firstly, just highlight the role and contribution of the transport sector in South Africa's economy.
Thanks for having us. Transport carries almost the entire GDP of any country. We are Southern African Transport, Conference. Essentially, our focus is not just South Africa; is the broader region. We've got representation of delegates from 27 countries. But as in recognition of the importance of transport in development, that these 27 countries are gathered here. They are here to learn, from case studies, scientifically documented, case studies. They are here to be part of master classes to learn how to do things and to absorb new knowledge, which is generated by researchers. The solutions for policy, for management of infrastructure, systems, operations, there's a lot of information, tools that have been that are available through the conference that can be readily deployed to unlock some of these things.
So actually just going into this, what are the biggest challenges that the conference will aim to address and solve in the transport sector this week?
We cover all modes of transport: land, air, water. So in aviation, there are regulations around the use of drones, for example, in South Africa. So we have brought in a few people to open our eyes to the range of things that we could be doing with our regulations, improving our regulatory environment to ensure that we do not hinder technological innovations in drones. So they will be unpacking those developments, learning from other countries how they've been able to relax their regulations so that they don't impede the use of such technology. Around electric buses, energy is a huge cost of public transport. Half of the cost, operating costs for our public transport taxi, minibus taxis, is actually going to fuel. So learning more about how to deploy electric vehicles for public transport would take us further in terms of reducing the cost of doing of transport in the country. So there's a whole class around it, what we should be doing to make sure that we are successful in doing so. And there are also we touch on the issue of maritime in West Africa is a massive economic enabler, navigable rivers and so forth. So safety, maritime safety is a major issue. So how can we improve the safety environment, maritime safety environment? Some of the technologies that have been deployed, we've got representatives from China who are unpacking some of the things that they have been doing on their site, and some of those have been welcome in our environment.
Very, very interesting points that you make there. For example, the runway for innovation in the sector, but also building sustainability and ESG considerations for the transport sector to participate in the green economy. And as you're talking about regulation, what then does, because obviously we know that for a lot of those things to happen, we do need private sector investment. So what does the policy landscape then need to communicate in terms of bringing together the public and private sectors?
There are small businesses who have come to the conference and they've invested in facilities to manufacture, tools, to manufacture various types of technology that can be deployed. And they depend on infrastructure spend. So their success depends on infrastructure spend. The minister this morning indicated that there is going to be increased infrastructure spend, for roads, for railways, the likes of Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa. That can only be good news for such businesses that have already risked their capital to get that infrastructure going. A lot actually is happening across the continent, we are told. So these small businesses are saying a lot of the market that they get, business they get, is up in the continent, African continent. And that we have brought in the AU, African Union, and the EU to the conference to unpack some of the opportunities that they've been investing in, will improve prospects for such small businesses on the continent.
Okay, and actually, as you're talking about, other countries in the continent, getting together, these 27 countries, but also including countries that are outside of Africa, what learnings then can Southern Africa take away from the other African and global countries and cities?
I think the one key lesson is around innovation. That innovation is the key to helping us leapfrog. If you look at, for example, what the Minister of Transport has been saying through her speeches, she's saying we need to restore infrastructure to save the 2015 economy, essentially. So a lot of the infrastructure has been vandalized. And by 2029, we will be carrying freight that we used to carry in 2015, but in 2029. And that will not be sufficient to respond to the economy in 2029. Now, for us to be able to catch up, innovation is key to doing so. And we've seen it in South Korea. South Korea, over the past 10 years, has been able to have the cost of crashes, fatal crashes in their country, have the fatal crashes on the cost of crashes. In South Africa, the cost of crashes is 3.5% of GDP. You can imagine if we're able to have the cost of crashes, we are releasing so much of GDP back into the economy. And that is what the Minister of Transport was saying. By 2029, she says, will reduce the fatal crashes by 49%, she says. So that if we're able to use innovation, sensor technology, the deployment of 4IR in enforcement, road law enforcement, we will go a long way in terms of leapfrogging in our systems.
All right. Well, we do have to wrap up the conversation there, Dr. Mokonyama, but thank you so much for giving us insight on the outcomes that you are hoping for and working towards as part of the Southern African Transport Conference. Really appreciate your time. That was Dr. Mathetha Mokonyama, Chairman of the South African Transport Conference.